definitely learning to trust my own instinct, whether that's business or life or love or people. And if it doesn't feel right, just don't fucking do it.
Okay, so we're back podcasting. Like I've said in a few of these podcasts, I'm not sure which order they're going to go out in, but I'm with
Number one.
Yeah, number one, Phil Kemish. It's great to have you, mate. Like,
amazing.
I don't know, probably 18 months ago, we were competing, with each other on pitches for influencer marketing work.
Just kept on losing,
and we'd never met. Really.
I've beaten him once. I'm trying to think which one.
Let's not talk about that. But we never really met, and then we had a great afternoon in Cannes.
That was a good afternoon.
Where we sat at the Marriott.
You were drinking the most expensive beer in the world.
We had a lovely week. It was just the most amazing weather in Cannes that year.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to go back this year. And you're speaking this year.
Hopefully speaking, yeah. We've done a deal with the Lions. So we're going to get some social activists out for a new segment, which they're supporting, called Secret Storyteller. Yeah. Where we get to share some inspirational stories from these guys who are basically influencers, but influencing social good.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting little track.
But you've been through, I suppose, in the last 18 months that we've been chatting and having done deals together and done deals against each other, a lot's changed in your life in the last few years.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, it'd be great to give your story of the last maybe 5 years and the agency story and where you are now. Yeah,
wicked. So started an agency called Disrupt, and it was kind of born off the back of working mainly in kind of urban culture. We were part of a team at Grime Daily, which is one of the biggest the biggest urban culture site in the UK. So a lot of brands were trying to tap into that at that point, 5-7 years ago. This is before it really is as big as it was then. No one really had got in there.
The good times.
The good times, yeah. I mean, there's a lot more money in it now than it was then.
That's true.
These guys at that point, we weren't getting many deals, and it was banner ads. We're talking about banner advertisements. This is what I was going out selling.
I was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I had websites when I was like 16 and
there you go.
Selling banner ads and doing that. They were like the wholesome marketing days in digital.
Easy. When it was easy. Yeah. And then people would come to us with content ideas and we go, this content idea was awful. That's not going to work for the audience. So we come up with an idea, and then an agency would take that idea and sell it to a client. And then at some point we just went, wait a second, like we're the middleman here. We should just be doing the deals. So eventually we created that agency, called it Disrupt. It was a record label for a year.
That's cool. Why started like that?
Why? Because we loved grime music, and at that point, our favorite artist was independent, and Matty, who's Sketchy, my business partner, he was one of the main designers in the kind of that culture, that scene. Yep. So we just said, look, why don't we just release a record? I was from the music industry, so my background is music. And we just said, let's have a year off and let's just work with our favorite artists. We got a tour bus, we traveled the world. We did a top 20 album independently. We won an AIM award, got a BET nomination, went over to LA. It was just a fun period of a life where
all the things you'd ever wanted to do, you did it in a year, right? It's your gap year.
Yeah, it was like a gap year, and we'd been running an agency for 2 years before together.
Yep.
So it was just in our transition period of we'd got to the point where we weren't happy with the agency we'd built first, so we went and had a year off. Really enjoyed it, but then it was that time that came back around where I think 5 years ago, you talk about now, we got to the point where we were like, actually, music's fun, but it's relentless. If you're going to be in the music game, I nod to anyone who wants to do music or a creator, because you have to be doing it every single day. And actually the agency model at that time was getting really interesting with content marketing and influencers, so we decided to go back in. And in 5 years, we built the agency, quite a lovely roster of people. And
What was Disrupt?
It was about cultural marketing. We were more strategic. We were about how do you connect your brand to culture and how do you have a positive impact on culture. So a lot of the brands would come to us and want to work with music, fashion, sport, in those verticals that for us were kind of where we came from. And then we would create campaigns, mainly global, campaigns or European campaigns for these brands that tapped into that culture, and heavily rooted in youth. When I say youth, I mean it's kind of massive span, but we say these words that kind of a music, sport.
So fashion. 13 to 30.
Yeah, 13 to 30, and we were 30. We were 25, 30.
You've seen the
so
youth.
we were. I mean, that was our thing, and I'm sure you use this now. It's when you're pitching against someone who was at that point 40, 45, and you're going, well, we're actually the audience. We're still those kids. We're growing. We're growing social channels. We were those kids. and I'm 35 now. So that I was 30, so I'm a millennial still.
Yeah.
So that's when like millennial marketing, you had everyone who was 50 going, millennial marketing's this.
Yeah,
And it's kind of like us now, when I go and watch a Gen Z panel and the guy's 35, I'm like, dude, you're 35. Like, you're not Gen, like, do you know what I'm saying? It's like, you start, and I've kind of grown, I've done 15 years in this world now. So you start to see like how quickly the generations are changing. And then I guess, like I said, we built the agency, and then 2 years ago, we got offered to be acquired by a kind of more traditional agency who looking for some social content, and we fit the bill. And I guess me and Matt, like as I said, never wanted to build an agency in the first place. It seemed like a nice transition to get through that.
Where
stage.
did Disrupt get as a staff count? I'm not expecting you to reveal revenues or like anything, but any sort of details. Like what scale did you get to before you got acquired?
We were doubling every year. We went from kind of like 2, and then at the end, maybe like 4 years in, there was like 15, 20 of us. So it wasn't loads, but I think that's because we never did any marketing, like as a business, because we weren't like a traditional agency model. Like we weren't trying to scale an agency business. Like just to give you an example, we built the Rated Awards, which is now on Channel 4, for a brand as part of our activation, but we own the IP. So it was like, as an agency, we worked a very different model where we were kind of thinking quite entrepreneurial at every point. We weren't just thinking about how we satisfy clients. We were also thinking about what impact that would leave on culture and people. So a lot of the deals we were doing was like cutting headphone brands deals with artists, so they would get a cut of the headphones, and trying to like really, I guess, empower a generation of people. So it was less like, and we had offers from bigger, and a lot of time we said no because it didn't match up with our values as a business. And I think that's one of the lessons I learned, that as soon as you say yes, and we actually had a bigger agency in the first 2 years because we said yes to everything. We went from 0 to 30 within 2 years, and then we couldn't handle it.
What couldn't you handle? Like obviously we've grown past that point, and we've been in that point as well, where you're like, Jesus, we're building a big thing here. What was it? Was it the people? Was it the money? Was it the stress?
It was more the work. Like when we set out the business, we had a set of values, and over the course of those first 2 years, the value system started to get depleted in terms of the work that was coming in. So we would say yes to a client that wasn't trying to positively impact culture. They were just trying to sell something. And look, it's because I think I have my moral system didn't work. And at that point I was like, I'll take the money because I need to keep the lights on. I keep paying people. And we came back after a little break over Christmas, and me and Matt just said, are you still enjoying this? Is this what we set out to do? No. And we decided to wind it all down. and we did it within 3 or 4 months. We wound the business down, and then went on that gap year of being a record executive and trying to be Dre and Jimmy. But yeah, I think just being able to say no was a really important lesson that I learned, being able to turn down things. Like I said, the scale here is hard to keep up with. And I just guess we didn't want to build a business model that was built just on taking money.
And on numbers.
You
want to build it on ethics and values, right?
And to be honest with you, when we looked at selling the business second time kind of, we had to base it around numbers because no one buys a business for values.
No.
So
what was that process like? Like you said, a few people had looked at it before, and you'd looked at it before, and like from when someone reached out, or did you reach like how? No, what was the situation?
We decided like 3 years in to the 5-year stint. 3 years in, we were like, do you know what? If we're doing this now, if we're gonna build an agency, let's actually think about what that means in terms of revenue, profit, like how do we actually do that? So we actually had to rethink about what the business looked like and what it would be like in 2 years, and start to look at taking on clients who would satisfy that. So we got rid of a lot of clients who were like quick turnover, 1 month, 2 months. We stopped our project work, and then we went more to retained work over a year. So a lot of our clients became year-long clients. And I think that was a very conscious decision, because we knew that you can't sell a business on clients that are in and out the door. You have to sell a business on your retained amount of money over a course of years. So some of our clients, when we sold or when we were growing the business, had actually amazingly been with us for 5 or 6 years, almost from the beginning. Like I had 2 founding clients, KA, who ended up doing the Rated Awards with us, and House of Marley, who I've been working with for 6 or 7 years. So that's from when me and Matt were like 25 to 28 to when we sold.
Yeah, awesome.
And stayed with us.
So what did you have to put in place that you didn't necessarily, because there's 2 different agency models, right? There's building, or as far as I'm concerned, There's building to dominate,
Yeah.
and there's building to sell.
Yeah.
And you have to do two different things. You have to put different structures in place in order to sell, because people are looking for things. And I suppose you're in a position where you were building to sell, because
at that point,
you were doesn't seem like you were putting all the value in yourselves. And that's the hard thing about selling a business, right? The founders are everything until they aren't.
Yeah.
And they empower other people to become those people that the company's buying.
Yeah. And I think, we had got halfway through that process and we sold quite early in that process. If you look at the process of putting in, replacement for yourself or me, that process had just begun but hadn't finished. So that's hard, yeah. But I think it was a timing thing. If I'm honest with you, there was an amount, and you know it now. There's an amount of bigger agencies that are looking at agencies like yourself or an influencer, social, who just don't understand that world. Who it's easier to buy the experience in than it is to try and staff that and start to go against you. So I think we're having a big transition, which you've seen over the last 2 years, of a lot of different businesses getting snapped up from different agency models. You know. And we just happen to be at the right time in our cycle. It's like anything. Selling the business or selling any brand is a relationship. You have to find the person who wants you, and you have to be the person that they want to be with. Like, it's the same as being in a relationship.
Going along that relationship analogy, what did you have to give up in that process to make it work? Because with all relationships, all successful relationships, there's compromise. And as an agency founder, I find the idea of selling very daunting, because I know at some point I'm going to have to compromise. It's my baby. So it's like, what am I going to be forced to compromise?
You have to be willing to let go. And I think that was the hardest thing that I dealt with the last 18 months was when you go through that sale process, you have to realize that it's not yours anymore. And that from a founder point of view, you made most of the big decisions, or you made them with some people in your business, your leadership team. But when and we sold outright, which a lot of people will do, when you do that, it is not yours. And, and I think the other thing you have to compromise on is that ultimately, it's not always going to be happy. It's not always going to be good. As in, like, you might feel good, but there's going to be a roll-on effect for the people in the team, the cultural differences, like trying to find a culture match or a match that, like, people understand your values of the business. And even if you think, you do the sense check-in, like a relationship, you kind of go like, oh no, do you want to have kids? Maybe, yeah. Like, do you want to, do you believe in monogamous relationships? Yes. And then all of a sudden someone doesn't, then
there's a problem.
There's a problem. And you can't do that all from the beginning. So we did due diligence as much as we could. They do due diligence. But, the process was an interesting learning curve, if I say it like that.
So let's talk about an aspect of that, which I know you're so passionate about now, which is people. And in a team of 15, I remember when we were 15 people, and the fact is that at 15, you know what everyone's doing at every point in the day, and you can see everyone, you can see what they're doing, you can see the impact they're having, you probably know what they're doing in their social lives.
It's family, isn't it?
Yeah,
like 15, the reason I love like agencies and businesses at like 0 to 15, 30 is because genuinely you feel like you're in a family environment and everyone's got everyone's back. It's such a nice feeling. And like I said, I've been in businesses that are 60, like the business that we sold to was 90, and then like you start to see how people work in silo teams. But I think the people element, like I said, there's two ways of looking at this. One, we had to secure the business future, and the deal that we wanted to do was to go and have a bit better infrastructure. At 15, your infrastructure is still quite small, as in you're still trying to you might be doing contracts yourself. You'd have the legal team, you have the HR support, and I really wanted to experience what it was like to run a business with a bigger infrastructure, so I could learn some of those elements and also maybe focus more on what I wanted to do, but mainly give the people within the business that I was working with the opportunity to grow, because we couldn't put staff training in place as well. All the things that you want to
be a boss, right?
I want to be a boss, and watch the guys who were coming up, who we had some excellent people working for us, also achieve that potential, and that, from my point of view, was really important to do. How the people in the business felt was completely different. They felt like we were kind of selling it out, and that we had not the best interest, at heart of the business. But
were you the two only shareholders?
Yeah, we were the only founders and only shareholders, so we could make the outright decision.
Any options across the business?
No, there was no options across the business. It's something that we wanted to look at, but again, at that point, we were like 3 years. Like, no one had been there longer than 3 years. and we had done it at that point 7.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the point like, you started in scale really quickly. Like, starting a business now, and my lesson would be, starting my business now, anyone that came in from the beginning who was there from the hustle point of view, I would have a share option scheme put in. Like, I would understand that. And even in the new business that we're starting in the startup, there will be a share option scheme for staff embedded from the beginning. But at that point, it wasn't massively done in agency as much. I didn't think, like 7 years ago when we started.
Yeah, no, that's probably true. It's been bred by the startup culture, and the unicorn culture of high investment startups have bred in the last 10 years, I suppose.
But it wasn't easy. I think matching culture to culture when you're selling. And this is from, like, even if you watch interviews on the Brandtrepreneur podcast with James Kirkham, he said the same thing. I managed to have some great people around me who have built and sold businesses, and all of their advice was pretty much exactly what I went through, which was, it's going to be great at the beginning, but then things are going to get harder as you kind of try to integrate businesses and processes and people. And, we were selling to an SEO and digital agency and more traditional, and we were quite off the cuff, kind of like rebellious, edgy.
Yeah.
So like just everything was quite hard to map. And I don't think anyone, no one goes into relationships thinking it's not going to be exactly how you want it to be, but it's about getting it right. And we spent probably the first 6 months to 12 months just working on integration, not even doing any business development. So it really stalled the growth of the business at that point as well. Because when someone buys a business, they expect it just to grow. But actually, for the first year, it's just about making sure it works within another business setup. So great learning. Like, I'm really glad I got it under my belt at like 30. So I've learned that process it's
amazing in any situation for someone to have grown a business from scratch and then sold it. So
and we never took any outside investment,
which is amazing.
So we did it from a bedroom, with no outside investment. So like it wasn't like
and you should be incredibly proud of that. And having been through a similar process myself at a small scale, I think that anyone who can start and sell a business has done something pretty amazing, and something that very few people will ever have the chance to do. And you're right, the process is probably going to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah. And never the same, and I don't think, because every single sale is going to be different.
Because of the people, right? And if we keep going into the people, like, I've got loads of my friends here at Go. We've got 120 staff worldwide. I've probably got 6, 7 of my mates, my closest mates. Yeah. And, we've done podcasts both for us and external, where we've said, Aaron and I especially have said that we don't really have that many friends anymore. And the ones we do work for us.
So you're paying them?
Yeah, I'm paying them to be my friend. Yeah. But also, the main reason we brought them in is for trust, and for people who are going to back us and really buy into what we're trying to build, and therefore, and also have the skill. Those are the guys that are going to do it more than ever. But also that means that you lose so many friends alongside it. Yeah.
I think as you grow in life, just in general, like, you start to shed people. Like, you get new friends. Like, I have this theory that every 7 years, like, you're kind of like change completely as a human being, and in those 7 years, you have friends that might just be there for like that period of time and not be your friends again. Like, I think I've got to a point in my life now where I'm quite happy that sometimes people are there for a season, they're there for like a reason, or they're there for like a lifetime. Like, me and Matt are lifetime friends. We started as friends. We built our first. We were running nights together, parties in Clapham 10 years ago, and now we're selling businesses. Like, that's just a part of the process.
You've been through everything, right? When you run a business with someone, you go through everything with them. The highs, the lows, and selling a business, even in its as a microcosm of all of those things, you've got ultimate highs and ultimate lows.
Being the boss of a company or co-founder and having the respect of like 15, 20 people, but then going into a 90% organization and people going, who the fuck are these guys? Like, they just waltzed in with like this social thing, and we do SEO and PPC, which is definitely working. And like, what influencers? Like, ooh, you can't even fucking ROI that. Like, do you know what I mean? That's what you're up against, and I know, no offense to people that are working in SEO or PPC, but they're very different than a social thinker. So like, two different parts of the brain trying to collide. So I lost a lot of confidence last year, definitely, and I think Matt did as well. You feel very lost when it's not your baby anymore. So we were there for 18 months just trying to...
Was that part of your earn-out, or was it just part of the integration?
Part of the integration. Like, we were there on an integration and earn-out, but we decided to actually this year to tap out early, because we wanted.
Did you relinquish stuff?
Yeah, we relinquished everything. Like any extra payout. We just look, and it wasn't because we believe in disrupt and what founder doing. It was more about the fact that we have aspirations that you can't do everything at once.
Yep.
Like I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. I come up with an idea a week, and I would, if I could pursue it, I would. I just can't. And one thing as I got older to learn is that you need focus, and it's really important that, especially for me now, that I work on stuff that I really believe in.
And is that, do you think, the biggest learning that you took from the whole process?
One of them. The biggest learning. I think to trust your gut, like that's a human instinct. I think people say that in a fleeting remark. Like my gut's telling me, but it's like the most human instinct we have is the natural feeling I should run away or I shouldn't be doing this. You feel it, and I'm quite spiritual. I've gone this spiritual journey the last 2 years as well, and meditation and all that stuff. But definitely learning to trust my own instinct, whether that's business or life or love or people, has been really, really an important lesson. And if it doesn't feel right, just don't fucking do it. I think a lot of people go through life knowing that they're not happy or something's wrong, and they just deal with it somehow. And I just can't deal with that feeling anymore. I need to get out.
Let's talk about the meditation side of things then, that sort of journey and what sparked it, because there must have been a reason where you've gone, because I started, and I've stopped just because I got so busy, but I started running in the mornings, not because I like fitness or anything like that. I've never been to the gym in my life, but because
you wouldn't look like it. Look at this.
The reason was, and the moment that made me do that was, I realized that I was spending zero time taking fresh air. I was literally spending all my time in the office or in my flat, and that was the moment where I thought, okay, I've got to make a change. So what was yours? Man. I
mean, meditation, people sit there and think it's like sitting on a cushion and umming and ahhing, and meditation could be swimming, it can go into the gym, it could be sex, it could be anything that gives you a break from your own fucking head. Half the time your thinking is not you, you're not the thinker. So I'm constantly my brain's going in the background, which is horrible subconscious thinking, processing, and that's great. I love that part of me, but I learned to listen to it way too much. And part of going through that process last year was listening to the more negative parts of what I was going through and kind of believing them. And I'm if anyone knows me or follows me on Instagram, I like putting up positive quotes, and I feel like I'm quite motivational, but meditation, it allows me to be able to listen to my gut again, the instinct part of me, not the thinker.
Bringing you back to being the ultimate human sight.
It's just listening. Listen to me. Meditation is just about listening to yourself. Because you can do a lot of thinking and your brain is asking yourself questions, but if you can sit in silence for 10 minutes, which is really hard, and I'm not a meditation guru, but just I see meditation as a practice. Every day I spend minimum 10 minutes on my own.
Evening, morning for
me, just because I'm in a routine and I like the habit of it, but sometimes it's at night. But just 10 minutes with myself. I think as social creatures, we go onto Instagram and we're connected, and we have this real discomfort with feeling being by ourselves, and I think we need to get back to that moment. I live by myself, and I think that helped. I went through a transition when I bought a house and lived by myself, and learning to be by yourself is really important.
How do you do it? How do you shut away from, you're, like you said, you're a, as everyone is, a very social creature, right? You've had a social media agency, which is the crux of the social sphere. How do you find that piece?
I use Calm as an app. Calm has been really helpful to me. I like just sitting there and listening to Tamara tell me what to do. I used Headspace for a while, but I find Calm better. I like their sleep stories. I just like the app. Then I can go through it, and then kind of depending on what I feel in the morning, I just choose something that I feel. I do it by myself as well. I have done a bit of training, and I've gone to a class to learn, and most of it's breathing techniques. I think humans we breathe really badly. I think breathing is something that people feel anxious, or people that sometimes feel that. A lot of it's because you're not getting enough oxygen. Especially when you're stressed, you don't realize it, but your heart rate goes up and your breath doesn't work. So Wim Hof, another guy that I watch on YouTube, and I watch some of his tutorials. He's the Iceman, you might have seen him, and his breathing techniques in the morning. But people say to me, I'm too busy, I just don't have the time. And I just you spend minimum 10 minutes a day on social media. Just replace 10 minutes a day of social media with some meditation or some breath, and just see the difference or feel the difference.
Okay, fine. So the last 6 months have been more about you, less about Disrupt, less about selling an agency and the stress that come with it. What has that journey looked like when you kind of reimagining yourself? Because you were previously, and this is of no negative at all, and I class myself in that bracket, being defined by the company that I own. But when you leave that, and this is obviously a huge anxiety of mine as well, it's like, if we were to sell, or if I was to leave at any point, like, do I lose everything, all the credibility, all the respect, everything, because I don't have the company?
Mate,
what's it been like since you've gone solo?
Maybe just before the 6 months, like I would say the last year, you do lose your identity. And I think that's one thing that like I wasn't expecting. Like I expected just to sell it and be like, oh, it's okay. But because we had done...
Everyone will know me, I'm Phil from Disrupt. I
just walked in your agency and it says Phil Disrupt. And I like freaked out, didn't I? I was like, oh my God. Like, because people do it. They'd be like, Harry Goat. Do you know what I mean?
No,
like,
it's literally that, right?
That is it. Like, you're Harry Goat. And like, I was in a band for like, I was on X Factor. So I was Phil Fortune for like 10 years because I was on X Factor and I was on the finals and people knew me. Like, people in Southampton were like, that's Phil Fortune. And then it was Phil Grime Daily, and then it was Phil Gets, and then Phil Disrupt. And it's like, when you don't have anything, you start going, who the fuck is Phil? And like, you ask yourself a question, and like, I was 34, like asking yourself that question, going like, I don't know who I am, I'm 34. So yeah, that's part of why the spiritual thing kicked in. That's, and for a little while, me and Matt have talked about this. I don't know if I'll talk about it from my own personal point of view, but like, I went through a very weird period where like, I didn't know what I was going through, but it was depression. Like I went very dark. I wasn't going into work because I didn't know what I was going into work to do anymore. Like I didn't turn up. I was very lost. And like, I haven't really talked about it, but it was a really kind of difficult period where I had to reimagine what I wanted to be. And the really weird thing is, after all this self-awareness and like this journey that I went in, and I went and spoke to some people, and I kind of like, what you realize is that you're always the right person. You just get a chance to recreate yourself. Like I said, that 7-year thing, that every 7 years you can kind of reinvent yourself. And I've kind of done that. So now I just got to this point where I was like, well, what makes me happy is the question you have to ask yourself. And I really like building things with people. Like, and if I really like building things with people, then just keep on doing that. And
get into construction.
Going back to being creative. So like me and Matty went back to the drawing board and we went, what one thing we can really do and do together? Let's create something. And we had this word Brandtrepreneur that we had trademarked like 5 years ago because we were just chatting one day about what we liked, and we were like, we like building brands and we like being entrepreneurs, and like, why don't we just become Brandtrepreneurs? And we're like, this fucking silly thing really, but like, we just started telling people we wanted to ask their story about building a brand and doing a podcast, and we just started being creative again. And we went back to the very thing that we started with when me and Matt first started, was working out of a bedroom and being creative. We met a guy, Nish, who's here, who like just helped
already my
us.
favorite part of the three three people that I've met from
but actually Nish came in at a really important time, because Nish came back and was like, I love what you guys have done. I've seen what you did at Disrupt. I've seen what you did at Grime Daily with the Rated Awards. I want to work with you. And we were like, this guy wants to work with us.
He's lost it.
And like from going a year ago when no one wanted to work with us anymore, everyone left, having a guy come out of nowhere and just go, I believe in you guys. Whatever you're doing, I'm going to be in. And we were like, all right, well, we're going to do this. And he was like, cool, I'm just going to get involved. And I was like,
it's that identity thing again.
That gave me back the confidence to, even in myself, to start going, I believe in what I can build. And we churned out Brandtrepreneur to 8 podcasts, and now a platform where we write articles and give away everything we've learned for the last 15 years about brand building. And then we're going back into launching our new startup. So we didn't know what the idea was, and we really wanted to make sure whatever we did next, because it might be 7 years, it might be 10 years, it might be 20 years. And I think like wherever you put your energy in, you have to know that it's right. Because I didn't want to do that thing where I start something that I knew wasn't. All honesty, I didn't want to go back into agency world. And the obvious thing after you've sold an agency is everyone goes, start another one then.
Or consult for a few and just earn some money,
and
right?
do you know what? I would rather help, we work with value list again. So what we went back to is, what are your values? When you lose yourself, like you have to go back to the really honest questions of a human, which are, what do you believe in? What moves you and gets you passionate? What values and belief systems you have? And when you rewrite that for yourself, and I've written these 10 questions, which I've written into a blog and I'll give away on my website, which is like those 10 questions really took me from being a very unhappy, dark person to somebody who was, again, focused and able to build. And the other thing about this thing, and you'll relate to this, is that I was burnt out. Without knowing it, I had built and sold a business, bought a house, broke up with a girl after 7 years. I just didn't realize that I was at a real burnt out phase. I didn't even feel it, because I've been so used to getting up every day and having to be happy, Phil, going to work, everything's cool, don't worry about it, that I had to admit that I wasn't okay to myself, which was a hard process to do, you know?
And so Nish kind of came in as kind of like, it sounded like you needed a therapist, not in a bad way, but like some sort of therapy to break you back into what you were good at and understand what you were good at and make you realize what that thing was. And kind of Nish came in and fulfilled that role unknowingly, right? You just came in and boosted confidence and actually showed some direction.
Yeah, I think everyone needs like a linchpin. Like I call Nish my linchpin, but like, you know, in any relationship or any like team, people play different characters at different points. I'm sure with three, like you've got someone who might be having a shit 2 months, but all of a sudden you'll pick up the pieces and like.
That's another thing, and the other way of looking at it is, I talk about it in a football team where I'm a football fan from the get-go, and we've always worked in sports, so that's kind of the easiest analogies for us. But play your striker in striker. Don't play him centre back. Play to your strengths. No point playing a left back in goal. Play him there.
100%. And we knew that. Like Matt's a very creative. He's a designer. He can build things. He you come up with an idea within 5 minutes. Sketchy's made it, and that's a brilliant thing. But then Sketchy, in his own admit, isn't the people manager. So and then, you know, Sketchy doesn't write lists, but Nish is great at organisation. So you need to create a team. And I think going into the new business that we're building, it's really one of the things I found it, and what's really important is almost that football analogy works really well, because I see myself as a manager, but then you need to create the best team, which means sometimes you've got to play your striker. You don't play your striker at left back. And the manager sometimes doesn't get all the glory, but he'll get the glory if the team does well. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like...
But he should also be blamed if the team isn't functioning right.
100%. If the team doesn't function, you're the person that takes the blame. So I think I've learned a lot about the leadership point of view, and also being Matt, for the new business, I was saying to Nish, for the new business that we're doing, I didn't want to be CEO. I want Matt to have that role and to be the person. I don't know what it's like if you got a CEO.
So we haven't got a CEO.
Yeah, you're just
There's three of us.
There's 3 of you, how do you make decisions if there's someone is there 3 of you? So if there's 2 of you doesn't want to do it,
there's 2v1. Yeah. I mean, it never really gets to that. It normally gets to a point where we have a phone call or a meeting and chat about it. Yeah. And normally by the end of that, the 3 of us are on the same side, or we're or that one person who wasn't bought into it. We never really vote 2v1. It's normally, okay, let's sit down and work out why we're in a 2v1 situation and understand what the problems you've got with that and why do you think that? And I think questioning everything is really good. And sometimes the 2v1 switches on its head.
Was it always 3? Or
it's always 3.
Yeah, because it's quite interesting, because I've always been 2 with Matt, which is kind of like a...
That's hard. I couldn't do
that.
A
proper loving relationship, which we've never actually disagreed, which is quite amazing. But in the new business, one, Brandtrepreneur, which is the content platform, but 2, the new startup I'm doing, there's 3, so in both. And we made a conscious decision that we wanted to have a third person, so it wasn't just me and Matt, the old mothers, always agreeing on everything. Because actually, it's really good to be challenged. It's really good to have somebody go, wait a second, that's not fucking right. And actually, me and Matt are so good at working together.
Or just the person who asked why.
Yeah, that's it. So in the new business, we've got a guy called Colin who's great. He's got, he's a little bit older than us. He's just kind of sorry, Cole. He's only 40. But he's
he'll be delighted with that.
But he's the guy that asks why, and he challenges me and Matt, and it's quite good, because I think you need that in a business. You need people, especially if you're going to go for a big business what you guys are doing. You need to have people in the business that are willing to stand up and say, why are we doing this, and challenge it. Because there's too many fucking yes people in the world. You could hire a yes person, but somebody in a leadership team that's willing to say no.
Yeah, unbelievably valuable.
Yeah.
So the last few months, I've obviously been in planning for this new business. Been building out Brandtrepreneur.
Yeah.
Let's talk quickly about Brandtrepreneur and the content side of things. Obviously, we've been creating lots of content. The podcast now being one of them. your podcast has been pretty successful for you guys.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed it. It was like we wanted to go, and over the last 7 years, we've met some amazing people who have built incredible brands. And every time I sit down and like have a beer with somebody, or we're like, we're chatting through it, these stories come out because, like we said, everyone sees the brand when it's finished. Everyone sees Goat now in your big shiny offices, but no one would have seen you three like crying in the coffee cup when things were going shit or losing.
Those are bad
pitch.
days.
And like these things happen, and like we just thought it'd be really interesting.
It was a Starbucks coffee cup, to be very clear.
We thought it'd be amazing just to get those brand stories, one, and so me and Matt could learn from him, but also help other people learn. Like if they're starting a fashion brand, we had Liam who started Hype, who Matt and him were designers back in the day, like competing. And we had JC from Movember, who's grown the biggest foundation, amazing dudes who have like really impacted the world. Then also I wanted to get some people, like purpose-driven people who were just like doing things that are inspirational and using social media, like influencers doing stuff for good. So we had Joshua Coombs on. So just a variety of people, and that was really great. And I learned a lot doing that process, like creating content, because we'd done it for brands for so long. And we'd done it our own channels at GRM, but like it was nice doing it for me and Matt. And just seeing other people like reach out to us and go, that this has really helped me. I've learned this and I've affected it on my brand, because the podcast is all about what are the actions you can take to create your own brand. Like I love people creating brands, like that's what I enjoy doing, like I said. So like when someone comes up to me and says, I listened to your podcast and I've started a t-shirt company and Liam's advice helped me, it's great.
What did you learn doing that process, going back into the content world?
What, into the actual content world? Consistency.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the things. Like
we were talking about it before.
Yeah,
right?
Consistency is really hard. I mean, you guys do it daily, and I just applaud you, because like it's not easy. And like you learn, the only way you can learn about it is doing it. So like, me and Matt sat on this idea for 5 years. It wasn't until Nish came in and we started saying, let's action now.
He's a savior.
Yeah, we started doing it, and then we're turning that up as in like, I think the other thing is like stories. You like you said, you have to create characters and people buy into the stories. So we had the brand stories, and then we're going into now our startup story. So we're documenting our business from day one basically to wherever we get to.
Yeah, great.
And I think that'll be really interesting, because I always go back into the stories of like what we went through, and they're not documented. I've got some pictures, but I would love to like have a weekly or a daily recap.
See, lots of people say, don't you wish you started the vlog earlier at Goat? And I'm like, I don't really regret that, because we had so much going on. I'm not sure we'd have achieved as much if we had the vlog going on.
And they would have seen you with normal hair. So
yeah,
that's
like,
no one wants to see that.
That's true. No one's ever seen me with brown hair on the vlog. But I wish we'd have vlogged Sport Lobster. The development days, because Goat started as the three of us, and that was great. And we obviously learnt so much and grew really quickly, and that was awesome. But everything we really learned was the 2 years before that, when we were grinding for someone else's company and going, what are we doing? And sitting in the rooms and going, we're just going to have to work it out. And then doing it, like executing, hands on. I wish we'd have I wish we'd have had videos.
And that's exactly why we're starting it. Like, there are some like amazing stories from Grime Daily days, from building the Rated Awards when no one wanted to put on the award show, and we had
in Hammersmith Apollo, right?
Well, this year was the Hammersmith Apollo, but 4 years ago I couldn't get a venue because no one in London would give me a venue. And I had, basically, this is a point 5 years ago, nearly 4 years ago, was the Rated Awards 2013. No one in London, because of the, what's the act called that they did? They basically stopped any grime artists performing in London.
Oh, wow.
696 form. So they created a form that was basically made to stop any grime artists or urban artists having a gig. So when you say to the venue, we're having every grime artist in the world in one venue, and some of the biggest artists performing, every police department in London shut it down and said, you weren't doing this event, not going to happen. So I ended up going into like a church basically, which was like an African church on the weekends, but during the week it was like open to, it was like a converted theatre in Islington. And I just gave the guy £3,000 in a cash bag and was like, we're doing an event next week. Do you mind just doing it here? It's just a music concert, like a music award show. And he was like, yeah, cool. And we just got it through. In the first event, everything went off, went off. Everyone loved it on social media. It's the first time it ever happened. But like, if I could have documented like the night before us packing envelopes, like 8 of us, and to where we got to last year, where Channel 4 came in and it was like, no, the Mobos
it's
went
big.
on.
It's big news, right?
Well, it's the only show for urban culture and a celebration of like this art and this music. and I guess the culture itself together. So that's why it's important, I think, to kind of do that content, because actually those stories behind the stories are almost better than the media.
How are you seeing the platforms now? Because
Yeah.
when it comes to content, and the content you've been creating, the content
Yeah.
we're creating, it's all about getting to the right audience, right? And with those stories, you want to get to the right audiences. LinkedIn's become a huge platform for storytelling.
Yeah.
And to get into storytelling within business, within entrepreneurs, it's very hard to target those people outside of LinkedIn.
No, it's great. I mean, like I like LinkedIn. I've been using it more, especially like this year. We started more on YouTube just because I felt like we wanted to test. It was a long format. We were doing 45-minute interviews, but actually the best content that's worked has been the clips of like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I felt we learned that lesson, because we were like, everyone's going to listen to 45 minutes because podcasts sometimes do. But a 45-minute of 3 people talking is pretty long. I don't know how long this is, but like, but you know what I mean. So
go for about 45 minutes.
Yeah, but I think me, if you want professionals and like, you know, people who are talking business, then obviously LinkedIn makes sense.
Yep.
I think the stories and the 15-second stuff, like on obviously Instagram and things like that's a different audience. But I enjoy that content just because I can flick through and kind of consume it quickly.
I think the stuff we've found really impactful and has performed really well on LinkedIn is the kind of 1 minute to 2 minute cut-ups of these conversations.
One question. So basically, if you're answering one question.
Answering one question.
So what we decided, and this is some learning, like our podcasts were based around the brand story, but actually if we had just said how to build a t-shirt brand from social media, and then Liam from Hype answers that question, you're like, yeah, Hype is like one of the biggest social brands, and it's a t-shirt company. So I think the simplicity of actually what content should be is always trying to get content simpler.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we can overcomplex stuff as creatives. I'm like, you know, we write storyboards and design creatives. It's just too much. I think some people now, we're so like brain dead with the amount of content there is and the amount of noise. I just want to watch one question being answered. Now I'm done. Do you know what I mean? So that's what we found, I guess.
As we kind of wrap up,
chatting
about, and this has been great hearing about, you know, going through the rigmarole of selling a business right the way through to what you're doing now. But it'd be great to look in the future and, you know, you have achieved quite a lot of different things in your life. You've done a lot of things that you've really enjoyed as well. You know, the Rated Awards is something you obviously were massively passionate about and made it happen. You've worked in music, you've worked in agency, urban culture, social influencers. Now you're trying to do something different.
7-year chapters, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what I said. Like every 7 years, I just decide to disrupt another market, and then I go into it. No, it's literally how I think. I see life as a bit of a game. I think that's the best way to look at it. I see things like if I love games, I play a lot of games. And like I see things as levels, and like every 7 years, I'm like, what's the next level? Like I've not completed music, but I was an act. I got to tour my best friends around the world. Like that's completed for me. Like I'm really happy I got to that.
Yeah, very few people get to that point.
I got to that. I'm saying like I did an agency. I managed to build that and sell it. I did a award show. Like I just see like things like what's the next challenge, and like I've never raised money for a business. I've never scaled a global business like you've done that. So I feel like that's the next stage for me.
So is that
that's the next stage. Yeah, and also I've never built my own product. So I've done a lot of marketing for other people.
See, that's what I want to do.
So I've never, like me and Matt, I've always talked about it. Like, okay, the record label was the closest. So, you know, I've built a record label, and but that's Getz. He was the front man. Like, it wasn't me and Matt. Like, we were there and we pulled the strings. But like, so for this time, for the next 7 years, from 35 to 42, I want to build something that really scales globally. I want to build something that has a positive impact on the world, makes people's lives better. And I'd really like to just disrupt a market. Like I think I was really lucky to come into influencer marketing at the beginning. Like 7-8 years ago, I was doing the first content deals for publications, and that grew to where we're at now. And like, I'm so proud of influencer world. I'm so glad that the skill set that I had and the talent deals and all that stuff that I love doing for music and talent has now become like a proper industry. Like and you're on like the board for like the advertising standard agencies of a thing. Like, and it's the same way that I helped grime music come from where it was as a street culture to like, you know, Stormzy at Glastonbury. Like that makes me proud. And I think all I want to do is be able to do that again and again. Yeah. For culture, you know.
So the question I was going to ask was, what do you want your legacy to be? What does Phil looking back when he's 60 and he's got 60, 70, he's got grandkids.
Yeah.
Like, what's the legacy? You've done so many different things. That legacy's probably quite difficult to pin
Just a
down.
positive dent on the world, man. That's it. Just a positive mark that somebody looks back and goes like, that made the world a better place. Culture, yeah. I think culture drives humanity, yeah. And like I said, there's people like Elon striving to get us out into space, and like, I like culture, and I think culture can be anything from music, fashion, entertainment. But I think the world right now, we're in a really important phase where we need entrepreneurs and creatives to stand up and try to do something that's going to make this world better. I want to also tackle some of the issues, environmental crisis, homelessness. I want to really look at some of the big problems, and like, I work a lot, like I said, with Joshua Coombs and from Do Something for Nothing, working with the Movember guys. Like, I want to do things like that. Like I said, about the Cannes Lions things. Like I want to try and challenge and change it for the better. If I can do that through business, great. But if it's not through business, then we'll do it in other ways.
Mate, it's super impressive.
Thank you, bro.
It's been a pleasure hearing about your story and
Thanks,
what you're
man.
planning to do and where it all fits in, and also what you've achieved with the different elements of the things you have done.
Thanks, dude.
It's also inspirational for me to meet and chat to someone who's sold a business, right? Sold an agency, which is the process. No, we're not going for a sale, but like the process of growing.
The offers must be rolling in.
They are not. Come on. No, we're not looking to do that right now. But you know, the situation is that, you know, all businesses at some point go through a transitional phase.
I think you guys have done amazing, man. Like, I look at like what you guys have done, and like I said, if I could go back and if I was like, because you got one thing, you did it really well. That's my other bit of learning that I just want to leave people with is like we tried to be a full service to everyone, like we wanted the creative, we wanted the content, we wanted the influencers, we wanted the social, we wanted the paid social, and like if I could go back, I'd just go like, let's just do one thing really well.
Play a striker.
Striker.
That's it.
Just do influencer marketing really well, like you guys do it on a global scale, and you'll win big. And I think like
don't ask your striker to fucking defend the last man. It's
I can play.
I
can play every position though, Harry. Like, I can play in goal and I can play up front. So like, you know, this is like there's going to be that point like where that might come in useful. Like
that's the SEO and PPC, right?
If you put me in a 5-a-side team, I'm playing every position. But like, you know, I am actually a goalie. So like, if you ever need to play, you know, if you ever need a replacement to come in.
That's where I'm going now, right? To go and watch a
yeah. But look, thank you, man. And like I said, we're going to have you on the Brandtrepreneur podcast.
No, I'm excited.
People can check out the journey and follow us on Brandtrepreneur. They can look it up. It's just Brandtrepreneur. And then me, I'm just Phil Kemish. You can check me out.
No.
Phil Kemish. That's it.
Exactly. Thanks so much for chatting with us. Like I said at the start of this, we're doing lots of different podcasts over the next few weeks. We're banking them up. I'm not sure which one this one's going to be released as.
If it comes out in June, the new business will be out, so you can check out that.
That would be cool. I think it will definitely be out before then. But yeah, been really, really inspirational talking to you. And you'll be able to check out all the podcasts on YouTube and across all the different podcasting apps. Tune in next time. Thank you very much.
Cheers.